Well, I've reached the part of the show where I'm going to read you this week's installment of Ezekiel Kralen's endless story about two little dogs and a meth head who is a friend and the other people who live out in the street around the apartment where Ezekiel Kralen lives and periodically shout up to him and have him come down and do something for them because he does it and gives them money and stuff, which is kind of nice, actually. Meth-Pesty Night is the title of this particular installment. Ezekiel Kralen wrote, email correspondence March 9th and 11th. Subject, 6 doggy sweaters instead of 4. Part 1 of 2, continued. Date March 9th. Can we talk? Sure, I said, while picking up the notebooks and pens. He then apologized profusely for his behavior in the past and hoped I can forgive him for that. I'm not really like that. I just have my moments, and I promise it'll never happen again. Well, I stood up and replied with a wry grin, you certainly gave the worst first impression anyone's ever given me in my entire life, but yeah, I forgive you. He then went on to further apologize for his stupid behavior while his companion stood nearby with a friendly demeanor, but I cut him off, reassured him it's okay, no need to keep apologizing. We're good, I'm a smart fellow, and saw this reconciliation weeks ahead. I just didn't want to be premature about it, seeing as I'm focused on protecting Deke's dogs and this building, so now you understand my behavior towards you in the past, okay? Scooter said, yes, he does. Then asked me about his bohemian sugar daddy, as he hadn't seen him in days. He's very worried about him. Explained how he loves the dude with all his heart and how they've been together for 11 months now. Right, Watson, that's when I first saw them together 11 months ago, but I question their relationship as he could be making this all up for his own meth-induced motives. As far as I know, Carlson could be friggin' too scared of the fellow to chase him away for good, which may be further damaging his already frail health. Of course, I kept this dark conjecture all to myself and suggested I step inside and knock on his door, see if he's home, though I already knew Scooter can do that himself, but chose to feign otherwise. Oh, no, you don't need to do that, he replied. I have the key to his place. I'm just wondering if you know what's going on with him, if he's all right. I guess you guys don't have cell phones to keep in touch, eh? I queried. No, we don't, he answered, which I already knew, but thought it wise to not lay all my cards on the table, including that one. Well, I'm guessing he's been rushed off to ER again, I surmised aloud, as that seems to happen quite often with him. Really, you think that's it? He asked with some frustration. Well, it's been that way ever since he moved in almost 3 years ago, I replied with a shrug. He then declared, I was thinking maybe he's made friends with somebody else in the building and maybe hanging out there sometimes. That's probably not the case, I said, with an index finger pressed upon my chin in contemplation, though I could be wrong, but my impression is he hasn't made any friends in this building. No one's fault, though. People tend to keep to themselves these days. And then added just for flair, Ronavirus and other bad news, you know. So I assured him I'll keep an eye out for Carlson and let him know if I see him, but since he has access to his apartment, I'm sure that won't really be necessary, though I do suspect he's back in the hospital and he must have been escorted away in an ambulance late at night while I was sleeping or when I was away from the building to shop for groceries or run some errand or show up at an appointment or visit my attorney, stuff like that. You have an attorney for what? He queried with more than a passing curiosity, so I then gave him a brief outline of my lawsuit with a blah-blah realty, how the building manager's growing senility created this debacle in the first place, and now he's on his deathbed, how a neighbor down the hallway who gossiped against me and was good friends with the manager kicked the bucket several months ago, etc. I also told him my situation with Deke and his pups, how he now has a tiny cabin as of a month ago, and that I've been, quote, an advocate, an activist for the LGBT homeless for decades, and this is just my latest calling. Scooter's mind was blown, or at least that's how he played his next card. I had no idea. That's impressive to say the least. He then looked at his associate and said they need to go now, and thanked me again for accepting his apology with such good grace. I said no problem, and off they went, somewhere up Market Street, away from the Castro. Now get this, good doctor. I still hadn't had dinner and was starving at this point, so I quickly swept up the remaining debris, deposited it in the trash bin, and rushed upstairs to finally get down to preparing my humble feast of pita bread stuffed with Swiss cheese, roasted pepper strips, and sliced Kalamata olives, topped with a few splashes of crystal hot sauce. Add that to a small, shallow bowl of frozen peas, heated to perfection in a microwave oven, and a mug of diet ginger ale, and you have a feast fit for a pauper. After chopping up the olives and pepper strips and slicing the pita bread into 2 even halves, I suddenly heard someone boom up to my window, "Zeke!" It was definitely not Deke's voice, and I thought, now what? Better not be Scooter. Upon peering out my window, to my disgust, I laid eyes upon pesky Vince, who I always hope never to see again, but keeps popping up like a jumping spider from your shoe when you least expect it. "Are you busy?" he said. Part 2 coming up tomorrow, if I'm still alive for the telling. Subject, 6 doggy sweaters instead of 4, part 2 of 2. Date March 11th. "Are you busy?" he said. "Yes, I am," I replied. "Oh, come on, really?" he exclaimed with annoyance. I saw no way to just make him vanish, so consigned myself to stepping outside and have a talk, which started with, "Yes, Vince, I'm busy trying to fix supper and go to bed. I've been up since 5 a.m. after a very exhausting day. Then you show up. Don't ever holler up to my window again. That's the last thing I need. You have no idea what I've been going through these past months." Please note my exaggerated explication in order to discourage his dropping by. "But this is the first time I've ever done that," he replied with a hint of belligerence. "Right," I rebutted with greater belligerence, "and this is the first time I've ever told you to not do that." As you can imagine, Watson, I was really pissed for this intrusion and his snotty meth-inspired behavior, with assistance from a pint of cheap vodka swinging from his hand. I had to make it absolutely clear to him, as I have in the past, that no, he's not coming upstairs to visit. I don't have anyone visit me anymore, not for at least the past 3 years. Nothing personal. That goes for everyone, including Deke, who he knows, albeit casually. "Oh, Deke," he scowled. "I saw him the other night, arguing with that whore who clings onto him like a tick. I was going to say hi, but didn't want to get into that. I don't see why you bother with the dude." Of course, Vince spoke about him that way, because jealous I spent so much time with my Cajun baggage and not him, but I made sure to correct his rude remark about Scampy. She's not a whore, but troubled and in great need of shelter and kindness. Deke is one of the few folks on the streets who is kind to her. He apologized, said he didn't mean it that way, and I replied, "I understand. He's just expressing frustration." Sometime during this unpleasant conversation, he blurted out, "Well, I'm going to find some way to get into your building." I nearly exploded. "No, you're not, unless you want to go to jail. That's breaking and entering, and this is a private residence. So no, no, no." I reminded him he entered this building already without my permission last year, bumped into the manager who asked where he's going. "And you said you're here to visit me," I further admonished, "even though I told you twice before I'm not having visitors anymore. So when I heard the commotion, I opened my door to see you and the manager in the hallway. He asked if you're here to see me, and I said no, he's not welcome, and he knows it. So he drove you back outside, with you giving him back talk all the way down the stairs." I then paused, took a deep breath, and continued. "The reason I don't have visitors, and I've already explained this to you in the past, is thanks to the ongoing bedbug infestation, the coronavirus, and some other issues." "Other issues?" he interrupted with a scornful mask. "Yes," I replied. "In your case, it was the last time you visited, which was when? Over 4 years ago, when it was time for you to leave. Instead of going straight downstairs to the lobby, you skipped to the back porch and stole an LCD monitor someone had tossed away and then left. I wouldn't even have known you did that, except a few weeks later you came up to me and bragged about it. Now, how do you think doing shit like that affects me as a paying resident? There are cameras on the porches." "Oh, he mumbled. "You're a nut job, Vince," I exclaimed. "I already have one in my life. That's Deke, so I'm not going to put up with 2 meth freaks in my world. One is bad enough. So if you step into this building again, I won't hesitate to sick the cops on you. Just who the fuck do you think you are, Vince, to talk like that? You're out of control." To be continued. Well, that's a little bit more exciting than previous installments of the story.